President Trump's long-promised plan to shake up the economy will be implemented from the 2nd of April. He has already slapped duties on imports, causing a global war. 2 months in office, and the U.S. president has imposed heavy tariffs on goods from its neighbors Canada and Mexico, as well as China, Australia and European countries. A week ago, the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said that the Trump administration will go ahead with the reciprocal tariffs on the countries assigned. He said that the countries that contribute the most to the U.S. trade deficit will experience these tariffs the most. Amidst these impositions, China now looks south as it seeks to reduce reliance on the United States. With the tariffs on Chinese goods mounting, China is trying to find a new foundation for growth that does not rely on an increasingly supply chain based in the United States. Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has said that he expects to have a one-on-one discussion with US President Donald Trump on tariffs as Washington prepares to announce new tariffs on its trading partners on the 2nd of April. There are concerns Australia could be impacted by the looming escalation in the Trump administration's global trade war when it unveils the reciprocal tariffs, with the latest being the one Trump imposed this month on steel and aluminium that have affected Australian exports. Meanwhile, here's what the mayors from Mexico, Canada and US have said in a rally against tariffs. Listen in.
The Summit of North American mayors focused on an issue of importance to all of our cities right now, and that is trade between our three nations. This is an extraordinary gathering at an extraordinary moment. As you all know, the last couple months have been marked by escalating tariffs and threats to trade. At this summit, we've shared how our economies, good jobs, and the cost of living in each of our communities all depend on the trade relationship across North America. And we conclude with one simple message. Let us end this trade war and restore the stable and mutually beneficial trade relationship that has provided all of us so much shared prosperity. The United States has no better trading partners than our closest allies.
Joining me on the broadcast is Mr. Arvind Mahajan, the Lamar Savings Professor of Finance, Texas A&M University. Mr. Mahajan, thank you so much for speaking to NewsX World. I, of course, begin by asking you, how exactly is the Trump administration preparing the United States of America for the tariffs that it plans on imposing on other countries?
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually, we really do not know in what way that preparation is taking place, other than there is a lot of news that we will have these tariffs coming along. I think it has created a lot of uncertainty in the process because we are very early in the game. And it really is unclear at this juncture how many of these tariffs, the so-called reciprocal tariffs or Liberation Day tariffs, how many of these actually will be imposed, and then the consequences of these tariffs, because there's going to be a backlash from our trading partners as well. So there's a lot of conjectures about what might happen, and the stock market is reacting in response to what it thinks might happen. But what actually will happen really is very unclear, because we really don't even know what exact tariffs will go and be implemented.
Professor Mahajan, at the same time, do you think there are any countries that could possibly convince Donald Trump as far as the tariffs are concerned, or do you feel that the administration will certainly go ahead with the decisions that it has made of reciprocal tariffs? Because we have heard that Australia may be hoping to now have a conversation with the Trump administration as far as the tariffs are concerned.
Well, listen, I mean, behind the scenes, I think all countries are having conversations with the United States. We really don't quite know. There's one is political rhetoric, and the other is what is really happening behind the scenes. So you mentioned just now about Mexico, Canada, and US, our trading partners, a part of the NAFTA, or the new NAFTA, so to speak. I mean, if you look, for example, in the case of South Korea and Japan, as you mentioned earlier, the conversations between China, Japan, South Korea in coming up with some kind of a regional comprehensive economic partnership, which they are talking about, Mexico is the largest exporter of cars into the United States. South Korea is followed by Japan. Clearly, these countries are going to be very seriously impacted if these tariffs actually go into play. In the case of Europe, same thing, 25% tariffs on car, 200% tariffs on champagne, for example. Every country is going to be impacted. You were talking in particular in the case of Australia. Australia is in a peculiar situation because they have an election coming on May 3rd. And one of the issues, clearly, it was at one time that Prime Minister Albanese was leading by a significant margin. But more recently, we've seen Peter Dutton and Albanese really narrow down the gap very much. One of the major issues in the
Yes.
election is going to be cost of living. Tariffs directly impact cost of living in Australia. So Australia, not just from economic viewpoint, but from a political viewpoint, is very concerned. The Prime Minister is very concerned about having this conversation with the Trump administration regarding tariffs. But as to the outcome, it is anyone's call at this juncture.